Good evening and welcome to everybody coming in here for yet another Streamer Square workshop this evening. Hope you're having yourselves a wonderful Wednesday so far. Good evening again. Welcome. My name is Shadow Temple, and this is another one of these installments that I have been doing here on Streamer Square for the past couple of weeks and months out throughout this year. The idea of these weekly workshops that we have been doing is to try to provide you as a streamer with some sort of kind of nugget of information that might help you along your path, whether it be through streaming or any other content creation for that matter as well. Tonight's particular topic, which I'm going to make sure that I have the chat open so I can actually see you wonderful people as you are chatting along with us here today. The topic today is actually going to be kind of twofold here. The first bit that we're going to be talking about for a while here is about audience agency. We'll dig into what that means, why it's significant for your channel and your space, as well as why you really should pay attention to how people interact with your stuff. After of which, then we are actually going to be working with our sponsor today, which is Warp Sound, a fantastic AI-based virtual DJ radio station here on Twitch that we're actually going to go stream on for a bit to show off this new kind of fantastical design where you as viewers can actually jump in and help us make music together in order to create this kind of brand new show, the likes of which the world has never seen. It's a pretty fun setup, and like I said, we'll discuss that as we get ourselves started on that soon enough. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and make sure that I have my chat popped out so I can actually see you wonderful people chatting along with us. And now we will go ahead and get talking about our topic today. So this is, again, a discussion about audience agency, all right? And before I guess we hit that, I guess I should mention again who I am. So I've been doing these for a little bit here. My name again is Shadow Temple. I've been streaming here on Twitch since 2014. In 2018, I was partnered on the platform, focusing on variety content. So, the generic term for someone who hasn't made up his mind on what he is doing on Twitch. Now, it's one of those things where you want to be able to do a wide variety of things, not be held down by one particular thing. So that's what I've been doing. In addition to gaming nightly, I've been doing cooking. I've also been doing plenty of voice acting and things of that nature on my own channel. In addition to that, out there in the greater internet online content world, I'm a voice actor. I've done hosting gigs for in-person stuff back when that was still a thing to do. I'm a Minecraft YouTuber and a museum educator on the side for those moments where I really don't feel like sleeping. But yeah, so the long story short of this is I've been doing streaming stuff for a long time. I've had a lot of success. I've had many failures, and I want to make sure that I can help you dodge the failures so that you can continue your path to success. Now, on to the topic at hand today. Something that I think a lot of people in this are let me try it again. So one thing that people tend to think about when it comes to Twitch is this sort of notion of, and any live streaming for that matter, is this notion of you hanging out with your audience in kind of this classic sort of, I'm sitting on a couch with my friends and we're playing video games together, right? In the sort of perfect utopian world of Twitch, that is sort of the environment that you're trying to bring to your audience, right? Or at the very least, you're trying to put on a show for the people who come in to watch the stuff that you're doing, and they want to feel like they are involved with that. When I say audience agency, I mean the amount of control that the audience has when it comes to interacting with your content. So, the basic classic idea of Twitch or YouTube or anywhere else you're streaming are, people trying to interact with you by typing things into that chat, right? That is a form of agency that the audience has. Now, if you take that chat that the people are typing in and you put it on your screen, suddenly they have the agency to put words on your screen, which for a lot of people, that's perfectly great. It's nice to be able to see those things up there, and people do feel good about that, and they feel like they're a part of something when they can see their name directly on the stream, right? audience notifications like subs, follows, and things like that can also be a form of agency for the audience members. Again, being able to affect the content there. The picture, by the way, in case you're wondering, was TwitchCon a couple of years back. Again, back when it was kind of okay to be in groups like that, I promise. Yeah. So with this, giving your audience agency and the ability to interact with your content on greater and greater terms is good, right? You want your audience to feel invested in the content they're watching, the content they're working into, and they're interacting with. But you do need to find, and we'll discuss this a little bit as we get along in here, making sure that you have an ability to make sure that you have control over what sort of interactivity they have, right? It's one thing to be able to give them this full control, but you also want to make sure that you are the one in control of the content as well, right? You don't want to completely hand things over to them, because then all of a sudden you are no longer the one who's running the show, right? All of a sudden you're giving the masses the control over what's going on. And while that can work in a lot of ways, it can also cause some problems, right? How much is too much agency when it comes to your audience? So let's talk about these sort of things, right? So whenever you're a viewer, for example, if if you're a passive viewer, like you're watching TV or watching like a pre-recorded YouTube video, you don't have a lot of agency in that, right? And you come to expect that for the most part. You don't want to have any part of that. But one thing that is something important to remember is that your audience doesn't necessarily always want to be sitting on the sidelines. One intense and double-edged sword that is Twitch is this notion of parasocial relationships. Parasocial relationships are this idea of the viewers who come into your channels having an engaged sort of relationship with you as the creator that they feel very intimate about, right? They know a lot of details about you, depending on how much you've shared with them over the years. They know like what your birthday is. They know how your day's been going. They know these things about you that is a one-way street, right? Especially as your audience starts to grow, you don't necessarily have the ability to learn the same amount of information they know about you for all of your audience members, right? To them, you are a good friend, someone they can turn to, someone that they feel comfortable being around and expressing themselves in a very personal manner, right? And that's good. You want to be able to have yourself available to people in the sense that you want them to feel like they're connected to your community. However, of course, there are some issues with that, certainly, as well. As with many relationships, there can be both advantages and disadvantages. And as Rini actually posted in chat right there, making sure that you protect your own personal boundaries is a big part of that, right? You need to make sure that while you are letting in your audience to a certain point so that they can feel that they're engaged and they're connected, and an engaged audience is a happy, regularly coming back audience, right? You want people to feel like they have investment in this space and they want to know you. But there are, of course, downfalls to having that a little bit too close. And I'll open this up for questions in a minute here if you do want to talk about that further. But one thing that you have to kind of establish for yourself in that is just how comfortable you are letting these people in, which, I mean, keeping in mind, these are effectively strangers, right? These are folks who you have, other than maybe a few strips of text that they've sent you over the weeks and months, as well as a username, you may have very little information about these people. And while they may seem like good enough folks that are just relaxing in your channel and they're making fun, jokes and jibes, and they're getting into the inner memes of your channel, you really don't know much about them, right? You don't know their personality. You don't know how they're going to accept denial or declination of the things that they might otherwise be asking for you to do. And so whenever it comes to giving viewers control over what's going on in your space, you have to remember that if you give one person this space, or if you give a handful of people this way of inner, like an inner connection to you, that is going to be the expectation that they keep getting back. Now, for one, that can be a bit of a mental strain, right? You don't want to have to feel like emotionally responsible for a whole host of people who may take advantage of that situation. There have been many stories, of course, as within the picture from this article, that of people showing up to broadcasters' homes, for example. That's a pretty extreme example, obviously, but the feeling that they're so connected to their favorite broadcaster that if they were to just show up to their favorite broadcaster's door, they would take care of them. They would ensure that they're not going to like push them away or push them aside. And whatever home life they may have, or life that they have independent of you, that you will be able to involve yourself in them and make sure that is in like fix their problems, right? Again, an extreme example of this sort of notion of parasocial relationships, but it is something that does happen to broadcasters. And so one thing you do have to make sure, and it hurts sometimes, I know it does, that whenever you're giving your audience this ability to interact with you, you need to make sure that you have lines in the sand that you do not budge upon. Even if there are people who have been, longtime viewers, or they've given a lot of money or things of that nature, you really need to make sure that you are keeping them to a certain point, not giving out, obviously not giving out your address and things, but it's amazing how quickly those things can get out real quick if you're not careful, right? Persona of a streamer is not the person. Also, yeah, that's also a thing to remember, right? Especially if you are presenting a sort of an outward, more accentuated, more dramatic version of yourself when it comes to streaming, right? We all have kind of personas, if you will, these sort of facades that protect our inner selves that we use for streaming, right? The Shadow Temple that I put on my own channel is not the person behind Shadow Temple, right? It's pretty darn close. A vast majority of the character that I play on stream is just me. It's just a more exaggerated version of me. But I don't have the bandwidth as a broadcaster, and no broadcaster does, to necessarily be a good friend to every one of their viewers, right? And so one thing to remember as well, let's say you've decided, not too bad, I'm going to be best friends with every one of my viewers. As you continue to grow as a broadcaster, how sustainable and how scalable is that model of access for you? So say, for example, that you... Every other day, or all your subscribers. Actually, this is something that someone asked me about a couple of weeks ago. How many? Or there was a streamer who was asking me, so I became an affiliate recently, and I promised all my subscribers that I would play a full raid in Destiny with them every time they showed up with their brand new sub. And they're like, okay, but that's cool. But now I have to like skip days of work to make sure that I cover all of my subscribers, because the subscriber count went up dramatically, and I don't have the time in the day to support them all through these raids. And so all of a sudden they didn't have this ability to scale up the level of interactivity or access that these viewers had to them. And if you set yourself up in such a way where you overpromise things that you can't necessarily give to all these individual viewers, you are going to find yourself in a place of pain, right? Your viewers are going to feel hurt by that, in the sense that they felt they were promised in this one thing, and then when it came to actually getting that delivered upon, you as the broadcaster were unable to deliver on it, right? And that's not your fault necessarily that you can't deliver on these things. You can't always necessarily expect that, all of a sudden you're to go from 10 to 40 viewers, and now, instead of having 5 people in a stream who might be asking for your help in a video game, there are now, 30 people asking for that. That can expand very quickly, and it can catch you off guard. In which case, making sure that you think these things through in advance is going to help you a whole lot. So when it comes to allowing viewers to kind of work into your space, I've kind of come up with 5 sort of basic levels of agency. Again, this idea of to what point do your viewers, do your audience, can they interact with the product that the content that you're putting out, right? On the far far left side, you see there is just like a YouTube video, right? They can't interact with it. Maybe they can put comments on it after the fact, but it doesn't change the content in any sort of way, right? It's completely passive in the sense that they can't touch anything. You can't react to what they're saying, and there's just nothing there, right? And if you have great videos, fantastic. And the viewers are expecting that. That is one kind of side of it, right? And YouTube thrives off of that, to be able to watch and respond to each other, but not necessarily to the content creator themselves. To get into a little bit more of kind of where Twitch kind of plays out further from there, right, is like the standard stream, right? Maybe a broadcaster's playing a video game, maybe they're doing some cooking or something, and the chat can talk, or the audience can talk to them via chat, right? And maybe the broadcaster's responding to those messages, whether or not it is on screen, does change a little bit in terms of how the content changes for that. But for the most part, that is where the line in the sand is drawn. Viewers have the ability to chat with you, but they don't have the ability to drastically change your content unless you, for some weird reason, decide to listen to what they're saying and decide to do something different. Yikes. Never listen to your audience. That's a terrible idea. I'm just kidding. You guys are lovely, but make sure that you're in control of your content for those things, right? So then we get a little bit further along, right? Let's say you are playing multiplayer games on your channel and you decide that you want to allow players to play with you, right? That is, that kind of splits between 3 and 4 for me. 3 is sort of this kind of middle place where you can play games, and this is an entire business, which is a pretty nice idea of playing games where the audience can interact with the game that you're playing through chat and through extensions built onto your Twitch channel. There are plenty of different examples out there, one of which we're going to be talking about in just a little bit. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, sponsor. But it is a really nice way of allowing your audience to feel like they have investment into the content at hand without necessarily allowing them in too much, right? That third point is kind of pretty important for that. A lot of examples that we'll talk about in just a moment, but classically, there are plenty of different ideas that have kind of sprung up as Twitch has increased in their own ability to allow a very large audience, and it scales very well from anywhere from 1 to 10,000 people to interact with one or with the content you're creating. Part 4 is kind of a little bit more extreme of that end, right? Where you're allowing the people in your audience to chat. Maybe you're bringing people into your game in order to let them play, right? In that sense, like maybe you're playing some Rocket League with them, or maybe some Fortnite or Fall Guys. You've brought in members of your audience to play the game alongside with you. Whereas within the confines of a very large audience where people can achieve relative anonymity as they play these games with you, once you kind of reach into that 4th level of agency, these people have become characters on your stream, right? Whether they're just themselves or they're trying to hype or play a more dramatic version of themselves, they are now part of your content, right? Even if they don't have the ability to necessarily do voice chat directly on your stream, they are now part of the content you deliver. And this is where you start to get into this place of how do you ensure that the people who are helping you create content at this point are creating good content for your audience, right? Getting in again with this sort of parasocial relationship, your audience wants to be friends with you, but they aren't necessarily always excited about the other people who are watching with you, if you get what I mean. In the sense that as soon as you start letting people into your lobbies and you start letting people into those spaces, and they may have a little bit more ability to change what is on your channel, that you are now losing, or I won't say losing because that makes it sound like everything's out of control, but you're ceding control a little bit to these people. Now, hopefully you've vetted these people enough, and you've kind of at least chatted with them once or twice, and you realize that they're quote unquote cool. In which case, then great, and maybe your content will be made better for it. But that is where you start to kind of cross these lines. And then, of course, you get into number 5, where everybody has full control over the content that you have on your screen, and they're all voiced, and they all have everybody there. Is audio desynced? I'm sorry that if things are a little bit off. I think it's just my audio, maybe not quite getting in sync with it. But that level 5 is, the other extreme. Versus like one thing is you're on YouTube. The number 5, you are allowing mob rule on your channel, more or less, right? And I won't say that any of these particular ideas are good or are bad, right? Depending on what sort of content you are establishing for your audience is where you're going to, is like how that's going to work best for you, right? Maybe you aren't comfortable with people watching you when you play video games, in which case, places like Twitch and other live streaming platforms may not be for you. You want to stick all the way down to the one side, right? If you don't really know what to do with yourself and you really want to just make friends and want to have good times on like Twitch or wherever you might be, and you've decided that you want all these audience members to just become bros and friends with you, then number 5 is totally fine. Just one thing that I always mention when it comes to allowing audience to interact with you on a channel is, especially on Twitch, you are fully responsible for the content that shows up on your channel. And so if someone comes up on your channel and they use some pretty naughty, nasty stuff, that's not all of a sudden, oh, shame on this viewer for doing this thing to my channel. How dare you? That is up to you. That as the broadcaster, you allowed that person on your stream and you allowed them to say that. Now, if you reject what they said and you remove them immediately, Twitch is not going to be extremely upset. But if that is a consistent thing that happens on your channel, that is where punishments and corrective actions can be made upon your channel. And so you do really want to make sure that when you let your audience in, and again, with all the caveats that we've already established so far when it comes to making sure that you establish privacy and certain lines for yourself, you also have to ensure that these audience members that you're bringing in are also people who are only going to improve your content and not make things worse for you. But again, all 5 of these different options available to you as a broadcaster and are available to create good content. All 5 of these things can create awesome content for you. It's just a matter of what sort of framing that you use it in and what works best for you as the creator. Now, for the rest of this and getting into what we're going to be working with today, I'm going to be talking about that kind of number 3 spot, all right? That idea of where your audience can interact with you and your content without necessarily letting them in too far. Crowdsourced play is something that has become a lot more popular on Twitch and other platforms as of late, starting off back in the mid 2010s with a little channel called Twitch Plays Pokemon. For those who may not have been on Twitch during those times, the premise was pretty simple. Someone placed up a version of Pokemon, either red or blue, whose names I don't quite remember at the moment. And they allowed audience members to type in chat what sort of commands that little character on screen should be doing. They were able to, move up, down, left, right, BA, select, start, right? And based on those buttons, their goal was to have the audience try and get all the way through that Pokemon game together. And that built up a very strange phenomenon where everybody was extremely excited to do it. The more people that came in, the more chaotic it became. But that chaos, that channel thrived on that chaos, right? Of being able to change things up and being able to make mistakes that the game didn't necessarily want, or that the game wouldn't necessarily allow you to do otherwise, or would necessarily reward for you doing. But it became this legend amongst Twitch, right? To allow the audience to come together and just hive mind their way through this Pokemon game. That is not as that has started an entire industry, an entire genre of games where, with a little bit more control and a little bit more polish, audience members can feel more in control of the stuff that they're watching, right? And that is pretty interesting, right? This idea where the entire crowd is more relevant than the individual viewer themselves. Every member of that individual audience can feel invested in the content without necessarily having to isolate one person at a time. right? This is a really powerful thing because if you're like me, where I'm a bit of a control freak over my content and I don't necessarily want to cede control over it, this allows you to make content together with your audience without necessarily losing your own agency. There are a bunch of different games out there that you can actually try out here, and feel free to look up just crowdsourced games and things like that. You can find yourself some pretty good information about those sort of things. But there is one of which we're going to be talking a little bit today. Before we do, though, are there any questions about anything we've talked about so far? So there's sort of, again, the idea of audience agency, parasocial relationships, or anything like that before we get into the back half of the stream that we're going to be doing here. And we will, by the way, be hanging out over on, and I'll explain actually what's going to be going on here in a minute. But we're going to be demoing our sponsor, Warp Sound, here in just a few moments. We'll explain what their setup is here, and then we'll kind of go on from there. But yeah, no Twitch Plays Pokemon still going on to this day. And while, not certainly the wonderkin that they once were, they started a new idea, right? Of course I love you, Cutting Dolphin. Wait, no. Too much interaction. Too much agency. No! Anyway, so Warp Sound. Warp Sound is the actual sponsor for this little workshop here today, and is a fantastic new channel kind of popping up here on Twitch. The idea of Warp Sound, again, is focusing on that crowdsourced play. The idea being that the audience has the most control over what's going on. And by allowing the audience to come together and have that ability to change the content as they see fit, the audience can feel very engaged in these things. And so, in the particular bit of Warp Sound, for those unaware, Warp Sound is an AI-powered radio station made up of 8 different live virtual DJs. So you can actually swap between these different DJs that you as the audience select that cover various different genres of music. Then they play for 5-minute sets from these different 8 genres of music. Viewers then get to vote on the DJ they want to see, whether they want to keep seeing the same DJ, the same genre, or they want to mix into the next DJs. Whichever DJ has the most votes goes to another place, right? That's actually Zombie Unicorn, who was on the broadcast prior to this. She was one of the broadcasters who also tested out this service a couple of weeks ago. We'll be heading over there actually shortly to check this thing out. As Morag posted it in the chat right there, you can see that you as a viewer have a lot of control over what's going on with the music. The music itself, fascinatingly enough, is actually being generated, its original music generated in real time. So you actually, as you are listening and as you are typing things in chat, you have say over what's going on in the music at that moment. And because of that, this music is actually being constantly composed, produced, and being played back, creating brand new sounds over the course of hours and hours of broadcasting here. That is just brand new. You as the audience have ownership of the music that you are creating by merit of making it as you're working alongside Warp Sound. And so I think this is a really cool idea and a really fun evolution of this idea of crowdsourced play, because it enables the viewers to, in addition to just having a fun time and creating new content on the screen, like, it is actual new media that is being made, right? New music that is being broadcasted out to the world, created through your choices, both through the DJs that you select and through the musical choices that you make through the various commands that you see there. Yeah, you'll when viewers and streamers alike actually get to collaborate with the DJs in real time via crowd play, using provided commands in chat to change the music as it's generated. The command with the most notes or the most votes that you put in is the one that changes how the DJ will kind of take that music in a new direction, right? Whether it be faster, slower, a little bit more energetic, or a little bit more chill, or just if you're not feeling the song at all, you can just swap to a new song and you just jump into something brand new. Warp Sound has been an excellent sponsor for us here, and we would love to check out their stuff. And so actually, this is something that we're going to be hitting up here in just a moment. The idea is that in a moment, we are actually going to stop streaming here. And instead, we're going to jump over to twitch.tv/Warp Sound to actually check out their setup. I'll be hanging out there for about the next hour or so, or the next about 45 minutes to an hour. And I will be making some music. And I would hope that you guys would join me on checking this out and see if we can make some sweet new jams together. All right. They asked that when you're actually joining us for this, that you please, let them know in chat and in Discord who their favorite character or your favorite characters and music is, because this is a system that is constantly evolving, right? They want to be able to keep changing things as they go along, try to appeal to what the viewers enjoy the most, and try to build up from there. So be sure to leave feedback as you go along with it, and you'll see the DJs change over time and things like that to the feedback that you provide, which is a pretty cool thing. I'll give you guys one last chance for questions here about anything we've discussed here so far today. Like I said, I know kind of an interesting, short, sweet workshop over here today, but we're going to be jumping right over there with a raid into Warp Sound stuff. Be sure to check him out if you have to head out here from here. Be sure to check him out another time. But otherwise, you and I hopefully are going to be heading on over to Warp Sound here in just a few moments, where we're going to try to make some sweet music together and see how this whole thing works, and maybe talk a little bit more about crowdsourced play and audience agency as well, if you so choose. In any case, I think that's where we'll probably leave it off for now here. If we're going to be heading over, let's go ahead and get that raid started over towards Warp Sound, and we'll check it out from there. In the meantime, though, this is where I'm going to be checking out from Streamer Square. I'll be heading over to Warp Sound, and I hope to see you over there. Otherwise, have yourselves a good rest of your day. Thank you for tuning in for yet another one of our Streamer Square workshops. Hope to see you again soon.